How's it going, small business owners and church professionals? This is Chris Charles with Spreadsheets4business.com, and this is the accompanying video for my post on conducting a SWOT analysis for your church. It's the second in the series that focuses on strategic planning for churches, and it's another one like my previous one that focused on mission statements, that is on the soft skills, as I put it. Most of what you'll find on Spreadsheets4business.com is, of course, about spreadsheets. Conducting a SWOT analysis isn't necessarily a spreadsheet-centric sort of thing, so it's there's no spreadsheet in this one. So I'll apologize in advance for the kind of dull background. This might be the type of video you'll just want to put on in the background. I don't really have much visually to put in here to spice it up. It's just mostly going to be audio, so I admit that that's probably a touch boring. I mean, I could have put together a fancy pants spreadsheet, I guess, but in the interest of getting this done and getting it out, and ultimately, or I'm not fancy pants spreadsheet, sorry, fancy pants presentation, slideshow. That's the word I was looking for. Could have done that, but ultimately the value in this is in the audio. So you might be wondering, well, okay, if your spreadsheet, there you go, I got a spreadsheet on the brain. If your website centers around spreadsheets, then why do a post on and a video on SWOT analysis? And that's a good question, and kind of like I touched on in the mission statement video, because there are other elements of strategic planning that involve spreadsheets, involve them heavily. Capital budgeting for the church, operating budget for the church, financial budget for the church. Those all build upon the softer points of strategic planning, specifically mission statement, SWOT analysis, and strategy formulation is the other one. So this video and post serves to kind of round that out, fill in the blanks, kind of paint a complete picture of what takes place during strategic planning. So, since I covered the harder skills, if you will, the spreadsheet and number crunching and all of that, I wanted to, like I said, paint a complete picture by covering some of the softer skills. Anyhow, there will be a link to this post on the website in the description, and it'll kind of serve as a reference if you want something in print to refer to. If you think back to something in the video that I mentioned that maybe you wanted to touch on again, it might be easier to search for it in print. So the link will be, like I said, in the description there. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of what a SWOT analysis is, and I'm going to do my best to kind of push through this. It's a big post. It's a complex topic. It's it could go on for a while, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I've got no problem rambling on about these subjects, but I've got a lot to say on the matter, and I'll try to keep it focused, keep it moving here, and get this bad boy done under an hour. Okay, so a SWOT analysis. What is a SWOT analysis? And as you can probably read in the description, It's spelled SWOT, and that is an acronym, and that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, SWOT. All right, and what it does, the point of it is to paint a picture of the environment that your church operates in. So you'll hear a SWOT analysis referred to sometimes as a situational analysis. Okay, it's the same thing. It's just taking time to commit thought to your environment. Okay, understanding what your internal environment is, your strengths and weaknesses, your external environment, your opportunities and threats, and how all those interact will help you, should help you in your decision making over the coming year. Okay, so where do you even start with a SWOT analysis? Start with thinking about, you can start with strengths and weaknesses or opportunities and threats, but sometimes it's easier to wrap your arms around things that are within your control, and that's the strengths and weaknesses. Okay, and when you're thinking about your strengths and weaknesses, it's not a time to let yourself off the hook. It's not a time to put on your rose-colored glasses. If you want this whole exercise to be effective, you've got to be painfully honest with yourself. Okay? So don't list things you think should be your strengths or wish were your strengths and ignore things that are your weaknesses. You've got to ultimately to make this whole strategic planning process worth your time. You've got to deal in reality. So you'll want to focus, once the SWOT analysis is done, focus on your strengths and control your weaknesses. Okay, so the other side of the coin is, of course, opportunities and threats. These are things outside of your control. The hand you've been dealt, so to speak. You can probably be a little more in touch with reality when listing your opportunities and threats. But don't also, when you're thinking about these, don't let political correctness or stubbornness or have your blinders on or anything. Be forthright about what the real opportunities in your external environment are and what the real threats are. Okay, so what I'm getting at kind of in the intro part there is just be prepared to see things as they are and communicate things as they are, because you and your team that are doing the SWOT analysis don't really stand to gain anything by fooling yourself or by pretending reality is something different than what it is. Okay, so we'll get into how kind of a strategy for doing the SWOT analysis. I'll make the point, like I did with the mission statement, that whatever gets the job done gets the job done. This is, look at this video and the post as a guide and an idea of where to start, but build on that in whatever manner serves your church best. Okay, it's not a strict step 1 through whatever process that I promise is the only right way to do a SWOT analysis. Now, whatever works. It's sort of thing every year that you do it, you'll get better at and more efficient at. But before I get into that, let me also qualify myself briefly in terms of, who am I to give you advice on how to manage your church? And, as I kind of hinted at earlier, I'm more of a numbers guy. Okay, that's my strength, what I'm good at. That's what my website revolves around. And, so I don't manage a church. I've never done a SWOT analysis with the church. And I don't go to church on a regular basis. I've been to church. I think churches serve a valuable purpose, and for the most part are a valued part of society. So I'm not coming from this from some sort of weird angle or anything. Okay, if you go to my website, my post, my free downloadable workbooks, spreadsheets, okay, all free. So I'm not trying to, again, pull something over on you here by talking about something I don't know anything about. What I did do when writing my post and in making this video is give a lot of thought to how I would do it. So it's authentic in that respect. I mean, authenticity and everything on my site is something I strive for. So, not trying to be a charlatan or anything here. Here's the thing. I make these videos for churches, these strategic planning videos, because there's a demand for them. Based off of what I found looking on the internet. Okay, so it's no different than I made the point in the mission statement video that if I were I might not never go to like a nail salon or a women's clothing boutique to shop. Okay, and I wouldn't start those types of businesses because that's just not what I'm into, but nevertheless, a lot of the things that I'm going to cover in this video and that I cover the soft skills and strategic planning in general are applicable. It doesn't matter the industry. The thing is, and part of one of the other reasons that I chose churches was because it gave me the opportunity. Most of my education, training, experience in that is in the for-profit realm. Okay. This gives me an opportunity to look at things from the not-for-profit perspective, and I thought that was a good opportunity for me to learn something and kind of look at things from a different point of view. Because churches, not everything's about the bottom line. Okay, there's a greater good to be served, so to speak. So it was a great opportunity for me to dedicate a lot of thought and research to these sort of things. And again, I'm not giving any advice that's inauthentic. Like, if you had me start a church tomorrow, these are the steps I would take to do a SWOT analysis. Okay, so let's get into it here. First thing you're probably going to do is, again, like the mission statement, more brainstorming. Okay? This gets the gears turning in your brain. It gets you and your team that's doing the strategic planning in the right frame of mind. Okay? The right mindset. So, really, I think, you can use some of the tactics that I outlined there in the mission statement video. Like I said, if you do a quick search online for brainstorming techniques, let's bring that up here. Pardon my ancient computer and slow Cox internet web connection. Yeah, it's not going to do it, is it? How disappointing. Anyhow, you can search for brainstorming techniques, and you'll get a multitude of results that will give you ideas of different ways to approach brainstorming. So, again, there's the old-fashioned list the first thing that comes to your mind. No ideas are off the table. It's fine and good. There's resources out there for different techniques. Okay, so let's see. So so you get all that kind of down on paper, and then you want to start consuming kind of information. Okay, so you got a bunch of ideas down for your strengths and weaknesses, your opportunities and threats, and it's time to start gathering some solidifying those kind of vague ideas. Okay, here are a couple ideas that I have on what it might help you to gather in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There are several different, really an infinite number of different things that might qualify as a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat. Again, this is just kind of an idea, kind of get the gears turning and everything to help get you in the right mindset. So, for instance, you can start with traffic count. Okay, your church is a piece of real estate. Okay, what is the most important thing in real estate? Location. Okay, so one of your strengths or weaknesses might revolve around simply the number of people that pass in front of your church in a given day. Okay. Most metropolitan areas that I've found keep traffic count information. Okay, and what that is basically where the Department of Transportation or something similar counts the number of vehicles that drive in front or on a particular stretch of road in a given day. Well, day, week, month, whatever it might be. Let's look at an example here. Or we can just search for one. Like if we look for traffic count, it's kind of a mid-sized city. Let's just say St. Louis. Big city, not really mid-sized, but you look here, that's just not gonna work with me, is it? Let's see. I don't know if that's Google or what. Apologies for the delay. Let's see. Okay. There we go. So we look. First result was Missouri Department of Transportation. Traffic volume maps. St. Louis District. Okay, it's 2016. It's a couple years old at this point. But let's see what they got here. I just pulled this out at random. Okay. So here we are. We got us a PDF. And kind of zoom in. This one here. Scroll over, you can see we're in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and it's got data. Now this one's kind of on the like the highways, state highways, interstates, and that sort of thing, but gives numbers, and I bet there's kind of a key somewhere here. Traffic volume and truck volume for each of them, so you can see in red and black respectively. So like I said, I literally just pulled that up at random, and I did that to make the point that this information's out there. So your particular city, I mean, if you're in a real small town, maybe not, but if you're in at least a decent sized metropolitan area, you can find this sort of information. Okay, so what's that tell you? I mean, it's basically you want to understand what your visibility is to passersby. Okay, if you're getting heavy traffic in front of your church, that's an opportunity to reach people with a what do they call them? Just the marquee or whatever. Or if you have a little better technology out there, like a LED, like a display thing that you can put video or some sort of advertising, something. So that's a big, you put a billboard on your property. That's a big opportunity to reach people. More of a strength, not an opportunity. Okay, opportunity is external. This is under your control. So anyhow, there's one idea. Another thing is to track your church attendance. Okay. And the point of doing so is to gather data. Okay, so you just want to know how many people are attending. Maybe you have a rough idea. Maybe it's small enough where you know really well how it can fluctuate from week to week. But this just gives you an idea of the number of behinds that you're putting in the pews. Okay, so software exists for this. Depending on the sophistication of your church, you probably don't even need software, but it's just a matter of accurately, counting how many people you're getting an idea, of your customers. Okay, in this case for a church, the people that attend are your customers. Okay, so on the same token, you can do a church census. All right, and what that is, and this might sound a little intrusive, and in a certain sense that it is, but like I said, if the members are your customers, okay, these are the people that you're serving, the better you can understand them, the better you can serve them. Okay, give them what they need, and again, it depends on your church. I mean, if you've got a tiny little church, you might know in a small town. I come from a small town. You might know everybody's family tree and business that extends well beyond church and all that. Might know where they work, where they live, all those sort of things. Okay, in that case, maybe an official census wouldn't make sense, but in other instances where you've got a lot of people that that you might recognize faces but not know circumstances of, or so many that you don't even recognize any but just a tiny few amount of faces. So a census, what it sounds like, it's like a census that the government does. They you're just basically getting demographic information, and you don't have to be intrusive with it. It depending on the culture of your church, the information you gather might might be real high level or a little more personal to a point, of course. So anyhow, just things, age, professions, family size, contact information. This is a good opportunity to get that contact information. I mean, look, you might not ever use it, and I mean, you're probably not the type of church that wants to put the hard sell on people, and frankly, I don't think you should be, but to have contact information is valuable. To let, if for no other reason, to let membership know, you're doing a fundraiser, you're doing volunteer opportunities, things that they would want to take part in potentially, but might not know about unless you market it to them. So, none of this has to be shady or, underhanded or anything like that. So the challenge you might run into with doing a church census is how to get people to fill it out. And that's just in my opinion, a matter of being the right amount of pushy. Okay, just general reminders that during service that you would appreciate if people would complete these, return them to you. You don't want to be obnoxious, of course, but just a reminder over a several week period, and you get what you can. Not everybody's going to turn it in, not everybody's going to participate, but just keep your information in check. Now, once you have that information, depending on the size of your church, it might be a pretty high volume of information. Okay, so then you got an issue of what to do with all that. All right, and you can use a database, Access. You could even use Excel potentially, depending on how much information you're talking about. And I love Excel, but it's not it's darn close, but it's not a cure-all for everything. Excuse me, but there's software out there called CRM software, Customer Relationship Management, and it's meant to handle this type of data. Okay, so that's an option too if you want to make that investment. Again, thinking along the same lines from a church, attendance tracking and census would be a survey. Okay. And, of course, what a survey is, and it's just basically getting feedback from your customers, your members, and this can help to maybe confirm or debunk information that you brainstormed initially in the SWOT analysis. Okay, the things. It kind of serves as a reality check, particularly if the survey is allowed to be filled out anonymously. And those can be done online, can be done in person. It's kind of up to you what the best manner to collect that information is. But anyhow, really think through, if you do that, what the questions in your survey should be. Make sure they're pertinent. Don't make it too terribly long. Don't make the questions trivial. Keep it to 10 or 15 tops, I would say. You don't want people to get tired of doing it and then just, yeah, their way through it. Okay, so there's no shortage out there of ideas for survey questions. Again, a simple search on the handy dandy internet will give you plenty of ideas as a starting point, and also refer to those the things, like I said, that you jotted down when you were brainstorming at the beginning of the SWOT analysis. Okay, here it was, quick search, first result. Plenty of resources out there. There's no shame in building off of someone else's work. A lot of great information there. So whether to do the surveys and the census as a paper or online, it's kind of up to you. It's kind of up to your congregation, what suits them, what makes sense for them, and that's really kind of an individual subjective sort of thing. So gathering information digitally tends to be more efficient. Otherwise you're probably going to be inputting it into a digital means, but if you gather it like paper copies, but again, that kind of all depends: size of the church, nature of the membership, those sorts of things. So the other way to get an idea to do a little scuttlebutt, as it's called in the investing community, is to do good old-fashioned talking. Okay, talk to your family, talk to the leaders in the church, talk to the people who aren't leaders working in the church, talk to the membership, talk to, if you're part of a network of church management, talk to them. Okay, up the ladder, down the ladder, sideways, everything. Just get these topics out on the table, and people have got obviously different perspectives, and it could help you come up with ideas you might have thought about. Maybe put a strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat into perspective. Those sorts of things. So don't be afraid to do that. So we'll talk a little bit now about ways to get you thinking. Okay, these are ideas, and they kind of play, not ways to get you thinking, ideas. If this is kind of your first time doing a SWOT analysis, and you don't know where to begin, these are some ideas that I gathered from doing a little research on potential strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, this is not an exhaustive list. Okay, you don't have to go through these bullet points and say, answer these questions and then you're done. Yeah, you did your SWOT analysis. No, this is just things to think about. Okay, so let's see. Let's actually copy this up here. So here's an idea for possible strengths. Okay, we talked a little bit earlier about the traffic. Your church is on a high traffic road. Okay, membership is stable or growing. Would be a strength. Most of the members have been with the church a long time. You have a pool of retired members with time on their hands and hopefully a willingness to help with skills that could help the church. Your church is welcoming the newcomers. Okay, it's probably hard to grow membership if your church is considered like closed off or cliquish or that, but that, in all fairness, might be what you're going for. Maybe you want to screen people out. You only want a certain type of individual. It's your church. You decide these things. A lot of this, this is why we do the mission statement before the SWOT analysis, because what you consider a strength is going to depend in large part on what your mission statement is. Strengths are going to serve your mission statement. Weaknesses are going to help, or going to contribute to you, preventing you from achieving your mission. Okay, but like I said, these are just ideas as far as possible strengths. Okay, your church has a good reputation in the community. Strong source of donations. For better or worse, money's got to keep coming in the door. Okay, in order to keep the lights on and doors open. Great leadership. That's always a strength, because the opposite is certainly a weakness. So, a self-sufficient attitude, Rich and lengthy history could be considered a strength. There's a lot of social proof there in terms of your church that, you've longevity. And this doesn't mean that, if you're a new church, there's no hope, obviously, because new churches spring up all the time. They also disappear a lot over time. But a history kind of gives you, like I said, that social proof. It kind of, like it or not, proves your worthwhileness because you've been around that long, okay, for a long time. In a sense of family, church members who speak the same language as locals in the community. Church revolves a great deal around communication. All right, communication's almost the product, really. You're communicating thoughts on higher power and everything. I don't want to. I'm usually not the type to like walk on eggshells, but there are a lot of different churches of a lot of different natures. So, I don't want to say, well, churches just revolve around the Bible. Churches just revolve around, this religious text, that religious text, whatever. But anyhow, what I'm getting at is, speaking the same language, whatever it is, whatever your church is about, beyond that, it's about communication, because the greatest written texts or spoken word in the history of religion doesn't mean anything if it can't be conveyed to anybody. Okay, so whether you're English speaking, Spanish speaking, whatever, it's that's strength. To be able to reach the community, to reach the people you do want to join the church. Okay. Next one's quality mission statement. And like I said, I have a mission statement video that I made earlier that covers a lot of things to think about when drafting a mission statement. And like I said, I would recommend doing so before you do SWOT analysis. And frankly, if you want new members and higher donations and a better reach, and you need the capacity to accept new members. Okay, if you're filled to the brim, got people hanging from the rafters at every service, that's going to be tough to build membership from there. So that's some ideas about some possible strengths. Move on next to potential weaknesses, some things to think about. Okay. If church membership is declining, okay, that's a weakness. Less membership equals less reach, equals less donations. As a general rule of thumb, unless you have a very specific type of member in mind, people leaving, not coming back is generally going to be bad. Low attendance, along the same lines, low attendance from children and young people. Okay, over time, obviously, the children become young adults, the young adults become middle-aged adults, become old adults. It's a lot of people attend church where their parents did and their family does. And if you're losing the kids and the young people, it might not impact you so much this year, next year. From a long-term standpoint, it's something that you're going to have to plan around. Maybe the welcoming process at your church is lacking. There's not a kind of I don't want to call it an orientation to make it sound too formal or that, and maybe you do have something formal like that, but something that kind of makes new members feel like part of the church community. Okay, if You got a congregation that's inflexible and stubborn. That's rarely a strength, usually a weakness, whether we're talking about churches or anything else in life. Low turnout when you're doing community outreach. Similar to the one earlier, you're not doing a great job of inviting people. Okay, you're not getting the word out. You're not letting people know that they're welcome. Then, right, growing membership, that sort of thing is going to be tough. Members that aren't getting value. Okay, if they're just coming out of obligation, feeling like it's a what do you want to call it, a burden almost, or an obligation, then that's going to give you trouble, probably sooner than later. A reluctance to challenge the status quo could be a weakness. Volunteers that work too hard, because you have low turnout for volunteer efforts. So the people that do volunteer their time and do their best to do something to help the church are getting burnt out, worn down. Okay, you're asking too much of them. A couple other things: antiquated technology, shortage of handicap facilities, lack of a strategic plan. Okay, so I'll obviously be covering that, like I said, and the posts are up, the videos are coming, and strategic planning, and there are also a bunch of other great resources out there, not just spreadsheets for business. Okay, so if you're like me, you're gonna try a couple of different things, try to take the best of what you find, and that's great. That's what you should do. So take the best of what you find from me, take the best of what you find from some of the other big names out there in terms of church management, church strategic planning, and give yourself the best odds for success. Another one that kind of relates to something that I do well is an inability to budget effectively would be a weakness. Okay. Churches have greater callings than just profit, but like I said, it's, there are still bills to be paid, and that is just the reality of the world we live in, and, you got to plan accordingly. So I can definitely help you out with that one. Here's a look at a couple of opportunities that you might consider. Now, opportunities, again, are external, not internal. These are things outside of your control, but they could still help you. Okay? Population of your geographic area is growing. Okay? More people in the area equals more opportunity for growing membership. Local youths that are in need of church services for whatever reason. Maybe because they're at risk, or the people that they're they could use your help, whether it's something to do after school, something to do on the weekends. That's another opportunity. You're near a college, you've got people, for instance, young people that are probably away from home, so away from the church they might have grown up going to, and are in need of what your church can offer. Okay. Another opportunity is members with influence in organizations throughout the community. Okay. C-level executives, people in management positions, people on boards of directors. It's basically people that are people in government that are powerful, and that can only serve as an opportunity. Doesn't mean you need to exploit the power, but it can't hurt, right? So another opportunity would be offering services. This one might be considered a strength, since it is kind of in your control, but offering services at different times than Sunday morning. Okay, more flexibility on your part means probably more opportunity to get people in the doors and in the pews. The internet and social media, of course, represent an opportunity, and then hosting community events and otherwise unused facilities. A lot of churches have a bunch of square footage, okay? Community events is kind of a vague term, but, like for instance, one church, something always took my kids to when they were little was like a trick-or-treat street kind of thing that they did at my wife's church, and it was great. Got, again, it's not all that different from a for-profit business. If you get people in the door, you get an opportunity to market to them. Again, it doesn't have to be pushy marketing, but just give an opportunity for them to see what you're about, increase the likelihood of them wanting to join the ranks of the membership. Okay. Look here, then, at possible threats. Okay, and I'm coming up on, what am I at, about 45 minutes, a little over. So we'll keep grinding along. If you're in a smaller town, older population, the kind of United States anyways has increased urbanization, people moving to bigger towns out of smaller towns. Older population means, unfortunately, everybody passes away eventually. It's more of a longer term consideration, but it is a threat. Laws and regulations that inhibit actions. Okay, if as time goes on, the United States, in my opinion, gets more. There's bigger differences in the cultures of particular parts of the United States. Okay, and laws are enacted that to reflect those differing beliefs. People, differing beliefs, elect different elected officials, enact different laws. These laws might inhibit actions that you want to take that you feel contribute to achieving your mission. So if you're in an area where laws and regulations will do that, that's a threat. That's a problem, because if I run a kickboxing gym, where I'm at, and some buffoon of a governor gets elected and outlaws kickboxing gyms, well, I can take my expertise, move across state lines, open a kickboxing gym. Not quite as easy with a church. It's a you get customers and you get them long term. Certainly, that's one benefit of churches. But the flip side is, it can't just pick up shop typically, I don't think, and move, a state away. So, other threats are competition for new members. Okay, every church wants new members, I would assume, and so there's competition. You're competing against the church down the block, across town. That's a threat. This kind of touches on what I said earlier. An anti-religious culture and environment would obviously be a threat, and economic hardship in the community. Okay, when times are tough and people are having trouble making ends meet, contributing to church will probably fall by the wayside. Behind rent, bills, car payments, those sorts of things, but not just the dollars, just the, some people might cling to church in those circumstances, other people might pull away from it. So, again, economic hardship is typically going to be a threat. It's just not good for business, whether it's a for-profit business, whether it's a not-for-profit business. So, let's talk a little bit here. Once you've got, so we've talked about, let me back up for a second, sorry. Brainstorming, okay, information to gather, to come up with your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Ideas for you for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, so with those 3 things, hopefully you have a pretty good list now. You've got all 4 quadrants well thought out, and a comprehensive list for each one of those 4 factors. Now you want to think about how those factors interact and how you can exploit those interactions. So exploit sounds bad, but in this case you're positioning yourself as best you can, your church as best you can, in light of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay? So just think about what it means where these interact. You've got strengths and opportunities, okay? And this is where the stars align. Okay, you've got an opportunity and it interacts with something you're good at. This is the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. You want to take advantage of these opportunities. And for example, it might be that your church is on a high-traffic road and the population of your area is growing. Okay, so you're in a good location. You're going to have more and more people driving by your church every day, every week, every year. Excuse me. You want to make sure that your signage and your marketing is effective. Okay, you're appealing to the people passing by. Another one might be your church is welcoming the newcomers, and your opportunities to host community events and otherwise unused facilities. You could offer those facilities at a reduced price to members. Okay, that's a benefit of being a member of your church. Okay, so you're welcoming in that respect by having those facilities available and at a reduced price if people are members, and you earn revenue from otherwise unused facilities. Okay, so the next interaction we'll talk about is strengths and threats. Okay, threats are bad, but if you have a strength to offset them, you can neutralize the threat to a certain extent. So let's say you've got a pool of retired members with skills that could help the church, and there's economic hardship in the community. Those retired members could put on workshops for the community members. Okay, and these workshops could be anything, whether it's budgeting, whether it's somebody, retired member from the financial services industry, how to deal with late payments, how to deal with creditors, those sorts of things. You're leveraging the knowledge of the retired members to help those who are suffering from the economic hardship. Another one is the capacity to accept a lot of new members, competition for new members. Okay, the threat is competition. It's a chance for you to set your church apart from the others. Okay, you don't want to, having way too much capacity could be a problem, obviously, a weakness, but it could be a selling point for people who are in an otherwise overcrowded church to come to yours and not feel overcrowded, and maybe have it a place where it'll feel more personal. Okay. Next interaction is weaknesses and opportunities. Okay. Well, in this case, the weaknesses could be preventing you from capitalizing on opportunities, and that stinks because opportunities are sometimes a rare thing, and you want to be able to capitalize on them. But so what do you do if the opportunity isn't something that plays to a strength of yours, but rather a weakness? Okay, so let's say a church has low attendance from children and young people, and you have local youth who are in need of church services. What's going to happen? Local youth are going to attend church somewhere else, probably. So, in this case, you're looking at how the two things interact, the weakness and the opportunity, and unfortunately not able to exploit it. So you want to, since you were honest with yourself and recognize this weakness, okay, you have an opportunity to fix it. So you want to think about then, what can you do to make your church more appealing to children and young people? Okay, because you've got demand in the local youth that are in need of church services, but for whatever reason, since you were honest with yourself and admitted your weakness, that you're in essence driving children and young people away. So it's a chance to reflect on what's causing that, and maybe the survey can help with that, maybe the talking with other members can help with that, and address the issue. So you can turn your church from a place that has low attendance from children and young people, in essence driving away, to a strength where it is an appealing place, or you have programs that are appealing to young people, and you can take advantage of that opportunity where local youths are in need of church services. Okay. Another interaction of weaknesses and opportunities. Sorry, I got to wet my whistle there. Our members aren't getting value from the church, and the opportunities, internet and social media. So you have the ability there to provide extra value to members and non-members, okay? Social media is with the internet and the advent of internet and social media, you have the opportunity to if you're followed on Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media, to reach your members, not just Sunday morning, okay, but repeatedly throughout the week, daily, multiple times daily. Okay, so yes, that's no good that you've acknowledged to yourself potentially that members aren't getting value from the church, but this opportunity of the internet and social media gives you a chance to change that, to come up with a strategy via the internet, social media, to start adding value. Okay, to think about how you can add value outside of church. The other 6 days of the week, whether it's through inspirational messages, whether it's through showing how other people are getting value from church. Okay. So, I think the big key there would be to be authentic. You heard me talk about authenticity earlier when I was talking about myself and talking about my circumstances and, what kind of led me to make this video, to make these posts. And yeah, just definitely don't go boilerplate here. I would definitely think about what you would want to see in terms of social media if you find yourself in this situation, and try to put yourself in the other, the person who might not be getting value from church's shoes. And I think you'll attract a lot more people than just kind of recycling wore out talking points. Okay, so the last intersection we'll go over is weaknesses and threats. Okay, this is a bad beat. Threat on the horizon, you've got no answer for it, and I see now that I'm not going to make my hour, but I'm hustling, I promise. So but hey, everybody has weaknesses. The key is to neutralize threats, try to shore up those weaknesses. So let's say you've got a reluctance to challenge the status quo in your church, and you're in an anti-religious culture or environment. It's time to come to terms with reality in that case. This might be kind of a touchy one, because maybe there are people in your church that are like, well, this is what it means to be our religion or our church. This is our culture. This is what we've always done, sort of thing. But you're in an environment that hostile in a lot of respects. So it might be a situation where it makes sense to tweak. You don't have to tweak your overall message. You don't have to obviously go against your mission or that, but perhaps work in one way or another a little bit of a flexibility to try to find some common ground, okay, with the people in your community, okay, because if it's an anti-religious culture environment, I mean they obviously are hostile towards you. So it's an opportunity to find some common ground in a case like this, and again, it's a tough situation. But meet people where they are. I mean, a good example of that to me is volunteerism. I mean, nobody's going to think poorly of a church. Nobody in their right mind, anyway. So some people will, because not everybody's in their right mind. But they're going to think poorly of a church that volunteers. That get presents for kids at Christmas. That feeds the homeless, gives the homeless clothes and coats, those sorts of things. So it's just a matter of, but maybe these things have never been done in your church, and this is new and this is going to cost money and time and effort. Where what I mean? That's the old status quo that this isn't who we are, this isn't what we do. And most churches do volunteer work, obviously, but like I said, it's just kind of an example that you've got to. If you're dealing with stubborn people in your organization like that claim this is not who we are, but you need to change who you are, who you appear to be, a little bit to function in a hostile environment, then you've got to you've got to deal then with the stubborn people that are holding you back from doing that. Another one is the inability to budget effectively, economic hardship in the community. You need to practice what you preach. If the community is suffering from economic hardship due to their own creation or from the economy in general, but you're over here too running your church and it's struggling, so you're conveying to your members that we need donations, because that donations are probably going to go down during economically tough times, but if you haven't planned around that, by budgeting, and Spreadsheets for Business can help you with that. All three facets of budgeting: capital budgeting, operational budgeting, financial budgeting. You're going to come off as, it's going to be a tough sell when the times are tough for people, and because you've managed your finances ineffectively, you're there asking them for money, the individuals. So this one is preventable. That weakness, the inability to budget effectively. So, the beauty of numbers and finance, in particular, is that they're reality. Numbers don't lie. They can, there are tricks and games you can play with them, but one's always one, five's always five, 10's always 10. So anyhow, that kind of wraps up, like I said, how the factors might interact, and it's time for me to wrap this video up because I've been going for an hour and 5 minutes or so. Here, like I said, it's a lot of information to cover. I did get through it as quick as I could. It probably sounds like a lot of trouble, but it's one of those things, kind of like the mission statement. Once you've done it, the first time's the toughest, okay? Because if you're starting from scratch. Okay, but once you've done it, you can kind of build off. Opportunities and threats going to carry from year to year. Strengths and weaknesses going to carry from year to year, and it'll get easier. But I think it's a worthwhile exercise, because just what you're going to learn about yourself, what you're going to learn about your environment. Okay, you're going to have a better grasp on reality. And this is going to help when it comes to getting grasp on reality in terms of doing your budgeting, in terms of your strategic planning and the goals you're going to make there. There's really no downside to doing it. Even if you can't get anybody else in your church on board and it's just you sitting down one afternoon and brainstorming and thinking about a couple of the things I addressed here and a couple of the things that some of the other gurus in the church management arena might have come up with. There's no downside. Now, the only potential downside is if you let it drag on and become a big convoluted mess, and argue over, well, this is a strength, this isn't a strength, weakness, not a weakness. It can in that respect, but as long as I'm a big fan of time limits and deadlines and just have it done by this date, because again, you'll be able to revisit it again next year. It's not set in stone. It's a dynamic thing. Life's dynamic. Strategic planning is dynamic. There's really no good reason not to do it. Okay? So, that being said, if you've stuck with me this long, an hour plus, man, you are a trooper. And I appreciate it, of course. And, if I had the ability to give likes and subscriptions to the people who watch my videos from start to finish, I would do that, but that's not the way YouTube's set up. So, look, if you like some of what you heard, if you think that there's some good ideas in here, some things that other people might be able to use, you've got to, the game is, if I don't get likes and subscriptions, YouTube's going to think I'm worthless and they're going to bury me. Okay? So if you found something that you like, heard something you like, and it wasn't a lot visually, and again, I apologize for that. Just kind of the nature of the video. Most of my videos, I'm going to be in the spreadsheet, clicking back and forth, showing how equations work, that sort of thing. But if you like what you saw, a like and a subscription is a great way to give a free tip to me to let me know that, let YouTube know that. So if you did do that or do that at some point in the future, again, thank you very much. And as far as comments go, I like comments. A couple of things that I'd love to hear from with you guys is, what other information do you think is worthwhile to gather? Okay, when you're in the midst of doing your SWOT analysis. I touched on a bunch of them in terms of, the traffic count, census, survey, those sorts of things. What else? What's going to help you, besides just thinking of it, what information's out there that would help you get a better grasp on your church's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And the other thing that I'd love to hear from you guys on is the ideas. I gave a bullet point list of possible strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What are some other ones that I left off? You guys probably know more than I do in this respect. Again, I did a lot of research, wanted to come up with a pretty good comprehensive list to serve as a jumping off point, but maybe you've done a SWOT analysis before with your church in the past, and there are things that I left off that you think that every church should consider in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So leave all that in the comments below. Again, thank you very much for your time. Take care, and I will talk to you later.